This edition of Tech Talk is brought to you by GlobalSpeak.com, new media consultants, corporate video and audio communications, video and audio production and distribution, live and virtual event production. Tag TV and Tag Radio is a service of GlobalSpeak.com, creatively delivering powerful marketing, video, and audio solutions. Chris, welcome to Tech Talk.
Thanks for having me.
Collaboration. You know, one of the things we talk often about it with on Tag Radio is that semantics can't keep up with the speed of technology and the change in terms of trying to define, obviously, various verticals, various applications, various technologies. Let's get some clarity for our listening audience in terms of, from your standpoint, collaboration. What does it mean to your organization?
Well, collaboration as a vertical has transformed over time, and voice and voicemail are what traditionally would fall under, a collaboration umbrella, and that's really no longer enough of a definition. Over the recent past, video, messaging, and meetings have all sort of fallen into that space as well. And right now, in 2017, I would say that collaboration includes all of those things, but also it's more of a process rather than a specific technology. And it's a continuous process that, in our modern world, it doesn't necessarily occur 9 to 5 during the workday. I think we are all guilty of taking work home, and that's actually really the way things are done now. You have to be able to flex between, when you're actively working and when you're resting. And I think collaboration in this day and age really is something that enables that for better or worse, right?
Well, let's talk a little bit about technology and even the trends that are occurring in that space as far as collaboration right now. What are some of the trends that are happening from a tech standpoint?
Well, what I'm seeing, there's no longer really silos of voice, of video, and messaging. It's all sort of blending together as the technologies have evolved, and it's including things like continuous meetings. And what's important now, organizations that value communication need to be able to pivot quickly between what used to be siloed communication methods. Video, voice, messaging, and meetings. There's a lot of inefficiency associated with, perhaps being on a voice conference call and then having to pivot to email to continue that workflow. And that, I think, is, the technology has evolved to the point where, those kinds of inefficiencies are being noticed more. They're more roadblocks than they used to be. So that is definitely a big trend. People are noticing that. People are asking themselves, organizations are asking themselves, how can we overcome these roadblocks? And so that is definitely one trend. I've noticed that video and messaging and these other technologies are becoming less expensive and definitely a lot easier to deploy as things mature. The meeting technology is starting to become more intuitive to use and more fully featured. One thing that I'm also noticing that is a very welcome change is that these technologies are a lot less vendor dependent, meaning that the vendors are starting to open up interoperability between each other. So there's still friendly competition between your communications technology platforms, but it's also at the same time much easier to get those working together, and that's a direct result of organizations and customers demanding that ease of use and kind of making things easier not only on their end users but on their administrative staff that have to maintain these types of communication systems. One of the other trends that I'm noticing is that where these needs used to be addressed by individual products, you had your voice product, you had your video product, and then your messaging product. What's happening now is that you're starting to see these all kind of come together in a single suite or experience that can make things much smoother and a lot easier to use. And finally, one of the trends that we've all heard a lot about is things moving to the cloud, and collaboration technology is definitely been kind of leading the charge with that. But as things have moved to the cloud, I think a lot of organizations that have sort of led the way in adopting cloud technology are starting to understand that a pure cloud solution may not necessarily be the right fit. And so what we're seeing is a lot of the technology vendors that we work with are enabling a more hybrid approach, not only with the technology and being able to say, okay, where things make sense, let's keep it on-premise versus pushing it to the cloud. They're also making things a lot easier from a licensing, from a purchasing standpoint, to sort of flex between on-premise and cloud in a hybrid way. So I think those are kind of the things that I'm seeing out in the technology marketplace right now.
Well, one of the things that you hear a lot about, I myself call them cognitive technologies. I don't know if that's the right terminology, but certainly the Internet of Things and artificial intelligence and the ubiquitous connectivity. And in fact, the other day I was reading an article about invisible computers and, the idea that everything is becoming so inexpensive that you're not going to even need hardware, that the actual chips or the connection will be embedded like wearables kind of a thing. It'll be in your wallpaper or in your couch or something like that as far as the home is concerned, and almost like an assistant, you'll be verbally conducting conversation and with that network in order to implement whatever it is you're trying to get across. And I guess really where I'm headed there is that the idea that so many things are happening so fast, and now obviously with the cloud allowing it to be able to do it pretty much at the speed that you want to create it, almost, rather than worrying about evaluating, say, hardware or taking a long time to make a decision. And I'm going to guess that the aspect of collaboration for what we know it today is going to take on a completely different mode, in the sense that not only is it the case of access and availability to be able to, say, communicate or collaborate, but in many cases it'll be intuitive, I would think. I mean, as far as...
Yeah, no, you've absolutely hit the nail on the head. I think this is the critical moment in collaboration and in computing in general, where a massive transition is taking place. And what I'm seeing on the consultation side and the partner side is that if you were in a position to be able to understand this shift and discuss it intelligently with your customer base, then you put yourself in a position to really be able to affect some incredible changes for your customers, for your partners, in how they go to market in whatever business they happen to be in. Because this is really something, Internet of Things and next generation collaboration technology it's going to affect everyone in very interesting ways. And this is a subject that is very near and dear to me, because I've been in the collaboration space for almost 20 years. Essentially, when voice over IP first became a viable business technology, the promise of voice over IP was that we were going to take these collaboration tools and convert them into applications, essentially. Mm-hmm. And once they're applications, then we would be able to do incredible creative things with them. Well, it's taken a while to get to that point, but I really believe that we are now there. And the collaboration technologies that are coming out are really built around the idea of an open architecture. And that leads into where I think traditional collaboration and application development come together. And this is something that in the collaboration space we've experienced on the contact center side, because contact centers and call centers are where technology meet business very, very closely. Mm-hmm. And so we've always been cognizant of, okay, how are we going to make this technology work with this business process? We want to make sure that we're providing information to the users properly, and sometimes that involves interconnecting applications. Your contact center application with your customer records management system. et cetera, and being able to pull all of that into a single user experience. That, I think, is extending outside of the contact center space very rapidly into just collaboration in general. And I think that's where next generation partners are going to be able to really bring value to their customers. And Cumberland Group is definitely leading the way in that respect. It comes down to being able to, instead of relying on out-of-the-box products, take these products that are designed around an open API architecture and building them together in ways that are custom fitting for our customers' businesses. And that enables us to bring in extra data. You mentioned the Internet of Things. That's a very big buzzword right now. But really what it is it's very inexpensive compute pushed out to the edge and gathering information, things that could be relevant to your business. And you want to be able to pull all of that together and understand it and analyze it. And next generation collaboration technology enables you to do that and integrate that in with the business tools that are critical to your operation.
Well, you mentioned application development. Go in a little deeper into the importance of that. But before we do, while you're talking, I was thinking that, for a long time we've said it's the same thing, only different. It doesn't matter the vertical. I mean, obviously everybody's got a specific bent, a particular market, a quality of a product, or unique selling proposition, distribution, everything custom to that particular, say, vertical. But the other side of it is that everybody's involved in this transformation, I guess is the word that's being used currently, going digital in a digital environment. So in effect, whether you're a vertical for health IT or you're a vertical for e-commerce, it really doesn't make a lot of difference in terms of the infrastructure and the tools that you're going to be able to use, the technology that you're going to be able to leverage. And I guess where I'm going with the absolute powerhouse of the Cumberland Group and the stuff that you guys have been pioneering and literally providing consulting for many, many years, decades, is there a point where collaboration becomes part of a community? In other words, instead of everybody buying redundancy and duplication, instead of everybody going through the evolution of what it's going to take to be competitive, say in fintech, a particular company trying to compete, and to say, well, I don't really need that because I can collaborate with my vendor partners or my trusted associates or strategic partners and not have to duplicate that same thing that everybody else is already doing anyway. I don't know. Do you understand the point I'm trying to make? The question I'm asking?
Yeah, I think so. I think you're absolutely correct. There's a tremendous amount of similarity across these different technology verticals. The issue has always been, how can we take our collaboration tools and make them work for our unique environment? And up until recently, that has been very difficult to do, simply because the tools haven't really been designed around an open architecture to enable that level of integration. And now that is no longer the case. There are plenty of different tools out there that are designed literally for that. And I think what's happening is organizations that are used to working with technology vendors that have supplied them with closed systems, shall we say, it's a completely different conversation that you have to have with, okay, what's the right platform for us to enable these next generation integrations? And who do we work with in order to make that happen? Because it's a completely different skill set. Instead of having somebody come out and, unbox some things and deploy them, you're starting with, okay, let us understand your business. Let us understand, what sort of pain you're experiencing. What are you looking to do better? What sort of information do you want to capture that you're not capturing today? Let's, understand that workflow and then incorporate that into the technology that lies underneath from a collaboration perspective. So, it takes a very different type of organization to be able to have those conversations and build solutions around that type of model. And the Cumberland Group is leading the way with that. And we're approaching things from a legacy collaboration perspective. Having been in the UC environment for many, many years, but also understanding where things are coming from an application development perspective. We've at the same time as we built our collaboration practice, we also built an application development practice that works very closely with my group, not only on the collab side, but also on the Internet of Things side, IoT side. These are all things that are becoming more and more relevant to our customers, and that's what we have decided to focus on.
One of the things that I hear say a lot is invest in the inevitable. A lot of things that we do from a consultative standpoint with our clients is that we talk about you can't come at it directly. You have to come at it as you're looking towards the future with things hybriding and living up to their promise of expectation, maturing to the level that we get over the wow factor and actually start using the tools, implementing the tools. I think in a lot of cases, we forget not too quickly. I think if it's happening to us, you remember right away, but change has a way of being disruptive, and everything that we talk about as far as advancements are concerned, to the business owner, to the sales executive or technology executive, it's all about change, and it never seems to stay static long enough to get a grip on it to say, okay, it's changing. How can it change when it hadn't really, been there long enough to actually implement it and have any impact from it? I guess once again, where I'm headed here is that I'm fascinated by the prospect that somewhere into the future, as we progressively look at quote-unquote the inevitable, everything's either going to be an application or an economy. And if you're an application, I would assume you're not going to be able to exist very long without it being absorbed by an economy. And as a business person, you're going to be part of that particular economy. And I'm not talking about geographic one now. It may be, it's electronic and global, obviously. And I guess, again, where I'm headed is that the concept of heading towards that inevitable collaborative unification, I guess, it's pretty out there. I'm going to assume that a lot of first-generation entrepreneurs that are busy trying to make a buck don't have time to look into the future that far ahead, and if they do, they get scared by it and think, hooky-poo or esoteric. That's not going to affect my bottom line today. Okay, exactly. So where I'm headed is one of the great lines that I always remember from Steve Jobs was, people don't know what they want until they see it. So an interesting point for you guys is to know that the inevitable is out there and to try to get people to hear the message. Will you listen to it?
That's exactly it.
When they don't really know what... Go ahead.
No, you're I think about this all the time, every day, because that's the nature of what it is that we're trying to accomplish here. And you're correct. At least I think you're correct in where things are headed. Things are going to move to application, and the open architecture is here, and it's being adopted. And this is one of those times in technology history where things begin to accelerate. And we saw it when voice over IP first became a buzzword. And things accelerated, and there was a tremendous shift in technology, and it sort of plateaued after a while. Well, now we're entering another period of rapid development, and what I would stress is that people are looking into this and understanding what it means to their business and how quickly they can go to market, how quickly they can communicate with their customers. It's accelerating the amount and speed at which they're gathering information from their customers. And those who gather this information, understand it, and apply it first and fastest will be able to capitalize on it in a very big way. These are the types of environments that shift market share and cause people that slow down and fall behind to be eaten up by the competition.
Sure.
And I think that it's starting to become more aware inside of our customer base and the people that we're talking to just in the industry. People are starting to understand, and they're starting to move in the direction of, okay, how can we assist? How can we understand this new era, so to speak, and capitalize on it? And that's something that we at the Cumberland Group have been working towards for several years now, and we feel like we've gotten out ahead of things a bit, and we're pretty excited about the opportunities that affords. And again, it's we're sort of trailblazing, all of us now. And one of the things that I found that causes this to be a very unique environment is that given the nature of the technology and the open architecture that's there, now you have consultants and engineers that are able to express their creativity to their customers in building solutions instead of putting together solutions that come out of a box that have already been pre-designed and are static. Now we can custom build and adjust on the fly and address needs that have remained unaddressed. So again, like you said about the quote from Steve Jobs, don't know what you need until you see it. Well, we're able to show a lot more than has ever been possible. And just from a work perspective, it's very exciting. I mean, I'm totally enjoying being a part of this.
Exciting and frustrating at the same time. I mean, it's sort of like when you talk to internet security people and they talk about being hacked and you don't even know that you're being hacked. Well, I mean, I know a lot of entrepreneurs in first generation who are frustrated by the marketplace and the competition they have to face every day. But much like the hack that they don't know about, they don't even know that their competitors are using tools or technologies and don't even know that some of those things exist. So when I say about having something as strong a competitive advantage, I mean, absolutely necessary, I would think, in order to survive, forget about competing in the next decade or so. And knowing that you've got that and having the challenge of getting people to kind of take a moment to say, okay, I know you're busy, but you've got to hear this. It's the future. It's going to happen, quote, unquote, it's inevitable. Let's talk a little bit, and I would love to have you back because I think the subject is going to get more dynamic, not less dynamic over the next year or so, because I keep thinking of, again, what I call this cognitive convergence, because when it all comes together, you were talking about there would be a programmer or a professional. My mind was going, there'd probably be a robot out there that would also be able to solve that problem or handle that situation. Sure. And then, of course, the ultimate joke is always the one that says there's an app for that. But as we close, where do you see collaboration evolving to over the next 12 or 36 months? Again, another thing we say here is everything. So 20 minutes ago, I don't even know if you can look out 12 to 36 months and be assured that the environment's going to be anything remotely close to what it is today. But in that case, let's just take a moment, Chris, and say, where do you see it evolving to over the next year or two?
Okay, I really do think that the legacy collaboration technologies are going to continue to come together. Voice, video, messaging, meetings, those are going to integrate, and we're going to start experiencing a more unified process around collaboration. It's already begun. It's going to evolve and become more user-friendly and more, fluid. It's still a bit disjointed, in my opinion, but that's changing very rapidly. I think the development cycle on these products is really picking up speed, and that shows no sign of slowing down, which means that it really does become more and more difficult to prognosticate out beyond a few months. But I all the things that we've talked about, I see continuing. Application development and these custom integrations are going to become more and more of a focus, a way for organizations and businesses to gain a competitive edge. And when you're talking millions and millions of dollars, even a tiny percentage point of extra efficiency gained, of extra loss prevented, that matters. And so I think that's going to factor in very heavily. You made a joke about there's an app for that. Well, artificial intelligence and bots are becoming more and more prevalent, and as those are harnessed towards enhancing business experience for customers, for employees, et cetera, again, it comes back to that level of creativity. I mean, the sky's the limit, and as more and more creative application engineers start turning their minds towards solving some of these problems, we're going to see some really amazing things in the collaboration space. and in very short order, talking about voice and voicemail is going to be, I don't want to say a thing of the past, but it will have evolved well beyond that. And I, for one, am incredibly excited about the opportunities, not just for my organization, but for all the organizations that we can assist in moving in that direction.
Absolutely. I mean, the opportunity to take them from where they are to where they're going to be. It's almost a case where I can imagine it's pretty exciting to get up in the morning and want to, the old sales story is the guy that gets up every day and doesn't sell anything. He goes, makes 10 calls and nothing happens, and the next day he's got to get up and think, oh, I don't want to go to work. But when you go to work and you've closed 10 deals, you're pretty much going to get up early and want to get out there and start making it happen. I would think that a lot of your representation, a lot of what you do as part of that practice, being the managing director, pretty exciting to want to get up and get that story out every day, because you're really providing almost, I don't want to get corny about it, but it really is a service, because, again, I say invest in the inevitable. As we quickly, we're running out of time, but one last thing is, we talk about outside the organization, the clients and the vendors that you work with are being pressured to adapt. Take us inside a little bit real quick now, but we're running out of time, but how has the Cumberland Group adapted to the changes we've been talking about?
Well, we started internally. We built our practice and added our application development practice and applied these things to ourselves first and foremost. So our environment is completely what I would consider next generation. We use the technologies that we talk about. We build the integrations that we talk about, and so we have a firsthand knowledge of what this sort of effect has had on ourselves and how we work. And so when we tell our story to our customers, it's not, it's true to life. And I personally am very passionate about it because I experience it daily, and I see the changes that it's had in my personal life, how I work, and I'm very excited to kind of position that with the people that I get a chance to talk to. So.
Well, I can pretty exciting stuff. Lots of it's almost a case of it doesn't matter what day of the week it is. You just really don't know what's going to happen next. But in one side, that's obviously takes a lot of courage and it's challenging. On the other side, as you point out, passion, excitement, really a form of adulation when you can get to the solve problems. I know from a old school standpoint, the old sales pitch used to be, what are you here for? Well, if you can't save me money or make me money, I'm not here to talk to you about some kind of technology. I want to know how it's going to make me money or save me money, and I think now it's a case where that's even more challenging even today to get that right person to hear that right message and close them and get it implemented. Hey, Chris, thank you so much for taking time. I know you guys are crazy busy, and I appreciate what you're doing is so, in effect, electric as far as lots of things happening so quickly. But for taking a few minutes to kind of slow down a little bit, give us a little insight to what you guys are doing, and take a moment to speak with us today on Tech Talk.
It was absolutely my pleasure.